This is your Thursday Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand. Hello to everyone out there today. Thanks again for joining me here. Got a lot of stuff to talk about today. Going to go deep on the Timberwolves again. I know it feels like just yesterday we did that because we did do that just yesterday, but we got to do it again because they played a back-to-back, and it was a lot to unpack from a loss to Atlanta. That'll be coming up here in just a minute. Wild goalie Kaapo Kahkonen joins the show here later on, talking through his improved stretch lately, his hot play, and just what that means in the context of the Wild season, especially as they hopefully get Cam Talbot back here pretty soon. We talked about the dynamic between Kahkonen and Talbot on this team. What's it like in the in the goalie room, so to speak, and a lot of other good stuff from Kaapo Kahkonen. So I hope you enjoy that conversation. Get into a little bit of how much the Wild will need both of those goalies down the stretch, because that schedule in the second half of the year is going to be a sprint to the finish, games pretty much every other day because of this COVID pause they've had and because of the Olympic break. So we will we'll get into a little bit of what that means and some Kirk Cousins talk as well. Chip Scoggins had a good column in Thursday's paper. It's on StarTribune.com, of course, as well, about what the new, the kind of the big decision facing whoever comes in as general manager and head coach, what they are going to do about Kirk Cousins. We had a question about that submitted to the Access Vikings podcast that we didn't quite get to, and I will get to that on today's show. But first, what did I miss? Like I said, we're going to get into the Wolves again. Like I said, it was like 24 hours ago that I was sitting here talking about, Karl-Anthony Towns making the big play down the stretch against the Knicks, the team talking about fighting through adversity. They had evened their record, all this positive energy going forward, how they were learning to kind of win games like that. And first off, they probably shouldn't have even won that Knicks game. The NBA put out its final 2-minute report, and they said they missed 3 calls in the final 2 minutes, all of which benefited the Wolves, including saying that final 3-point play by Towns that sealed the game for the Wolves should have been an offensive foul. But that's neither here nor there. Bad calls are going to go either way. Probably some karmic retribution for the Wolves for a lot of things that haven't gone their way over the years, but maybe also some payback the next night because they go into Atlanta, opportunity to win road back-to-back, something they have not done, which I'll get to here in a little bit, something they have not done in a very long time. And things are going great early. They get a big lead in the first quarter, and people are making shots, everything. They're defending reasonably well, and get to the second half and everything falls apart. I mean, they'd already lost Patrick Beverley to an ankle injury. Not sure how severe that is, Chris Finch said post-game. So hopefully he's back relatively soon. Didn't look like it was the worst one in the world. Even his status in-game was doubtful to return, not ruled out. So maybe that one's not too bad, but, starts to unravel. Atlanta makes a bunch of shots early in the quarter. The Wolves can't keep their composure, a common theme when things go wrong for them. And Karl-Anthony Towns is griping at officials. His body language is bad again. Anthony Edwards picks up 2 technical fouls in a row after thinking he got fouled on a drive to the basket as things are unraveling. He gets ejected from the game, game that he was looking forward to. He'd coming home to play in front of a lot of family, I would imagine, because he's from that area in Atlanta. So that's got to be a big disappointment for him. He was not available post-game, but Chris Finch, head coach, said that he apologized to the team for getting ejected. That seemed like a pretty quick ejection, but you also have to be able to keep your composure. But that's also part of this team where when things start to go bad, this is what happens. And they talk, Karl-Anthony Towns talked just literally 24 hours before that game about how they kept their composure against the Knicks, how they battled through adversity. I guess it's baby steps. I guess, whatever they think they're doing right doesn't always go right for them, because the very next night they completely lost their composure. And I want to get to a bunch of stuff they said after the game. To their credit, Karl-Anthony Towns was made available postgame, didn't have a ton to say. D'Angelo Russell had a lot of good things to say, as did Chris Finch. I want to hear from Finch right off the bat with kind of talking about his frustration during that game and what he was seeing throughout it.
I'm not sure I did keep my cool, to be honest with you. I was pretty frustrated, I was frustrated with certainly some of the technicals and those calls and non-calls. I was also frustrated with the way that we were playing overall. A lot of frustration out there. Kept saying, we got a lot of game left to try to cut back into it, but we never really could get enough stops, so.
And that's a tricky one for Finch because he's got to have Towns back. That's his best player, and he does want Towns to get calls, and I don't doubt that there are certainly times when Towns gets fouled or gets a bad call and that doesn't go his way. That said, this is a constant over the years, and it doesn't seem to be getting better largely with Towns. Maybe in stretches it does, but his complaining to the referees, this is his 7th season. Obviously, Tim Duncan had the Tim Duncan face. Guys sometimes just don't really grow out of this, but the constant complaining is going to get you a reputation, and it's going to seep into how the team kind of reacts overall. And that was a question that Finch got asked as well. Here is his comment on kind of the tone that is set when Towns is complaining so much.
There could be some of that for sure. His frustration is extremely palpable and justified at times. I watch him going in there nice and strong and, just getting hit and, he's got to play through contact and try to finish. And, I can see where he gets frustrated with that stuff, but we talk to him. We have dialogue with the league and various levels to try to improve, his relationship, and it's something that's a work in progress for us.
Now, for his part, Towns didn't say a ton post-game. His body language was much different than it was after the win over the Knicks. He was upbeat in that game, obviously coming off of a big win after Atlanta. In the post-game news conference, he was, rapping his knuckles on the podium, kind of nervously, or just could tell he didn't necessarily want to be there, but he did answer questions, gave a pretty quick no comment. I'll play that on, kind of what he thought of some of what was happening out there, but did give a little bit more of an expanded answer on how the team can battle through adversity.
Nah, this for telling the truth in this league gets you fined, so I'm good, no comment. Just gotta keep fighting through adversity regardless, So I understand all the questions you guys are asking and everything, and they're great questions, but there's a lot of things at the end of the day we could have controlled to garner a win tonight. Did a great job of showing that in the first quarter, and we dropped the ball a little bit.
And I saved the most interesting comments for last. D'Angelo Russell, who knows Towns very well. They're friends. They've been tight for a long time. He knows him really well. And he was asked in a couple different ways kind of how the team can battle through adversity and how Towns can handle his emotions better. I'm just going to play answers to both of those questions consecutively because it really kind of paints a picture of what was going on in that game and what the Wolves' problem really is in games like this when things start to go poorly.
I mean, that's every game for us, honestly. Just when adversity sets in, we're either going to go about it the right way or kind of let it roll over and affect us the next play, and then the next guy's mad, and then it's just a contagious domino effect. So I just think that's where we got to be better. Simple as that. Yeah, we need losses like this. Because we're not ready to beat teams on a back-to-back, teams we're supposed to beat. We're not ready to get those stops that we're supposed to get, that extra rebound. We're just inconsistent with it. I wouldn't say we're not ready. We're not consistent enough with it to where we can beat these teams. So we need losses like that. Carl liked that. Yeah. I'm saying he likes that rah-rah, you know what I mean? And I realize he likes that, but it's a fine line between where, it affects the game, So I realized he liked that because every game or every other game we might be dealing with it, So I mean, you can do as you can say as much as you want, but I can't do it for him. So, and he's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. He knows, what he's saying. It's just it might affect the team, So, like I said, it's a fine line of being solid, when you need to be solid, and there's a time to be rah-rah and rowdy with the refs and whoever you're battling against. But figuring out that time where it doesn't affect the team too, So
that's the bottom line, right? I mean, Towns is an emotional player. You're not going to change him to a certain degree, and you don't want to take away whatever edge he gets and uses sometimes in a positive way, but this has been a negative more than a positive net over the years, in my estimation, and it's something that he's got to continue to work on if the Wolves are going to be taken seriously in this league. You can't have your best player kind of riding that emotional roller coaster every game, and specifically picking up offensive fouls, losing his composure, having it affect his game, having it affect his teammates. That's just not a recipe for long-term sustained success. So let me leave you with one more statistic that I hinted at the beginning of the show. Losing streaks of second game road back-to-backs after a victory. The Wolves have lost 27 consecutive games in road back-to-backs after winning the first game of a back-to-back. That tells me that they not only can't handle adversity, they have a hard time handling success. If you can't handle adversity and you can't handle success, what exactly are you good at?
Take a playcation to Mystic Lake for 24/7 gaming, fun restaurants and bars, and luxurious hotel rooms. And join Club M to bask in the rewards. Follow the lights to Mystic Lake, where every day is play day.
Really happy to be joined right now by Wild goalie Kaapo Kahkonen. He's on a nice little run here, as he was a year ago as well. Kaapo, how you doing?
Good. Good. Yeah, I've been feeling good the last couple of games, and everything's going well. So
when you're kind of thrust into a position where you haven't been playing for a while, or you're getting spot starts, and all of a sudden Cam Talbot gets hurt, and you go into the Winter Classic, and then you're rolling, and you're the goalie for a while. How does your mindset change at all, or how do you kind of shift your perspective when that happens?
I don't think it really changes. It's about being prepared and working hard in practice every day, and working smart, also doing the right things, and working on your game as much as you can, and then whenever you get a chance to help the team, you go out there and you can feel good about your game and just try to execute.
For a goalie, it can be kind of a journey into the NHL. Like some forwards, they get in right away and they're like lighting up the league, 18, 19 years old. Why is it sometimes a bigger developmental curve for a goalie, do you think?
Well, there's only one goalie playing, first of all, and you need those minutes to learn and get that experience. So I think that's one natural reason to that. And I think also when you get to play, you gotta you don't want to rush from one league to the next level too quick, because I think it's good for you to play a lot of games and in whatever level you're playing at, and then take the next step and move forward after that.
What were the biggest growth points in your game as you kind of think back to doing well with the Iowa Wild and getting your chance here, and just kind of how did you kind of get established and kind of grow into this role you're in right now?
Well, yeah, first you get into anytime you get into a new league, and you see new players, you see better players in your team and then the other teams. You get to see them and experience how good they are actually, and how they play and shoot and all that. And once you see that, and you can stop those guys, and every here and there, and you can try to learn how they do stuff, and try to find the answers to that, and eventually, I think when you work hard enough on that, you'll have some success.
Do you have one particular moment, one particular save you made on a particular player, anybody that sticks out as like, I just stopped Alex Ovechkin or something like that you're like, that was a moment for me?
I don't think about it right now. Maybe after your career, you look back and you see who you played against. But I tend to try not to focus on the individuals on the other team too much. You obviously have to know where those special players are on the ice and where you can expect them to shoot from. But I think if you start overplaying a particular player, they can also pass the puck or whatever, make a different play that you're expecting. So then it messes up your game a lot, and you just gotta trust that by playing your game, you're gonna be you're gonna be good.
Does confidence carry from game to game? Is it an individual thing where you get on the ice and you feel good one game, you go into a game feeling something's off or something? Or I guess my bigger point is, how much does winning one game or playing well in one game carry over to the next game?
Personally, I don't think about the last game at all, and the games start at different times of the day. They're in different cities, time zones. That the one thing I've learned is you don't always feel, today's a great day, I feel great. Most of the time you don't feel great. You don't get a good sleep at night or whatever it is. But I think, kind of like I said, is the everyday work. You work and you do the right things. So then even if you don't feel your best day, you still go out there and you do those things right, and you do the things that you've been doing all the time. You can trust that it's going to be enough, and even if you don't feel great, you're most likely gonna get the job done.
It's been a pretty resilient team this year, even last year too. Just thinking about everything you guys have been through, continuing to go through, as you've watched it, either while you're in the crease watching everything in front of you or watching from the bench. What do you see from this year's team in particular that makes it able to kind of overcome some of these things that have been thrown its way?
I think the room is great. We no matter what we won, I don't even know how many games in a row there. Everybody was having fun, and obviously, but then we go on and we lose a few games. We're still, it's losing is not fun, but we're still positive. We're not hanging our heads, or we're not, we're losing like we suck all of a sudden or something like that. We're still us, and we are like playing our game and trusting each other. We know we can turn it around, and then we did, and we won a couple of games again. And I think it's just that mentality we have in the room, that whoever's putting a jersey on any given night is, everyone's trusting each other to get the job done, and I think that's a great thing.
A couple more things for Kaapo Kahkonen. Really enjoying this conversation. It looked like Cam Talbot's back on the ice. He's, sounds like he might get possibility he could get one of the games this weekend, or could be back on the ice soon, at least to play again. I assume both of you would love to play every single game or close to it. Maybe not every game, because you got to have a rest every now and then. But when you have two capable goalies like both of you have shown, what's the dynamic like between the two of you?
Between us, it's good. All three of us. Hammond as well. He's a great guy, and I think we all get along really well. We all are competing, obviously, and working hard every day, and kind of pushing each other that way, I guess you could say. I don't make the call who plays or who doesn't, so I don't focus on that. Like I kind of say, it sounds boring, but I only focus on the day, the practice or the morning skate or whatever it is, we're doing at that moment, and then somebody's going to tell me if I'm playing or not, and try to help the team win. So
now that we've talked kind of small picture, let's talk big picture for a minute too. For those who aren't familiar with your journey, how did you even begin playing hockey? What got you from the very earliest moment to where you are now?
Just outdoors, probably, with my dad and my brother and the kids in the neighborhood. We used to play hockey outdoors, and then started playing in a team, I want to say I was like 6 years old or something. And then, ever since I think 10 years old, I've been a goalie, and it's been a great ride.
It's been a great ride. Should be a good one. The rest of the year is going to be busy. You guys are going to have a bunch of games to make up, which is kind of exciting, right? I think Dean Evison was talking today, like, you guys don't want to practice, you want to play games, right?
Yeah, of course, you'd rather play than practice. I mean, it's been a little weird the last couple of weeks. You only play a game a week or maybe two, but it's gonna be busy. But I think we're ready for that. We're getting guys back and back healthy, and we'll be good to go.
Kaapo Kahkonen, great run you've been on. Hope it continues, and thanks for joining me here today on Daily Delivery.
Yeah, thank you.
Really enjoyed that conversation with Kaapo Kahkonen. Talked to him after practice on Wednesday. Cam Talbot back on the ice. Dean Evison saying Talbot is close, perhaps, to returning, which is now obviously good news for the Wild. And they're going to need both of those guys. Evison talked about how much confidence he has in both of them, how this recent stretch by Kahkonen only reinforced that they don't really think about who's going to play when. They just kind of say, who's playing well right now? How can we best deploy both of these guys who have played very well in stretches for sure? Kahkonen especially, whenever Talbot's been out for an extended period of time the last 2 seasons, Kahkonen's really shined. He had that 9-game winning streak last season when Talbot was out. He's kind of rescued them to a certain degree here with Talbot being injured since the Winter Classic a few weeks ago. But really, this isn't talking about who should be playing as much as it is the Wild having pretty good options in goal. I don't know if either one of those guys is, the kind of guy you would just ride all the way through the playoffs, which is why I do wonder still at some point if there is a, probably not this season based on, what they probably think of these two goalies, but if there's an upgrade at a certain point, or if Kahkonen does seize that number one job as time goes on eventually here. But this season in particular, they are going to need both of those guys because you're not going to want to play the same guy, in those back-to-backs and those, every other day type schedule. They're going to break down, they're going to wear down. And having two goalies that you like, two goalies that you can play is a luxury to a certain degree. So we will see how that all plays out down the stretch, but a nice situation for the Wild to have in goal, and certainly much better than it was than a few years ago when they were really struggling to find any kind of consistency in net. Let's get to a little news for a moment. Vikings interviewed Dan Quinn and Kellen Moore on Wednesday. Cowboys coordinators, both of them, Dan Quinn on defense, Kellen Moore on offense. Kellen Moore, just 33 years old, had a really good regular season as the offensive coordinator with the Cowboys, but they did fall flat in that playoff loss to San Francisco. Interested to see kind of how the Vikings balance that out. That performance in the playoffs was not great, although players play, coaches coach. You don't know how much of everything was on somebody's shoulders versus the other. So lots of other interviews to come. Sounds like they've got 8 candidates. I would wonder if there's going to even expand that pool at a certain point. But remember, they're going to hire a general manager before they hire a coach. So don't get too caught up right now in that coaching search, the GM search, with names that are probably less recognizable because these guys are a little bit more behind the scenes. These guys and woman, I should say too. And let's not generalize because the Vikings do have Catherine Raish as a female candidate in this pool, which is a historic development. We do need to remember that they are going to make a hire in that realm first, even as they are continuing to evaluate these head coaches. Along those lines, let's finish with an extended cooler. Chip Scoggins wrote about this, like I said, in today's paper and on StarTribune.com, the Kirk Cousins conundrum that awaits whoever takes over these leadership roles with the Vikings. He laid out the case that his preference would be that the Vikings trade Kirk Cousins. That is his top preference, with the second one being that they just ride out the 2022 season with that big $45 million cap number, and the third preference would be extending Kirk Cousins. And those are really the three options on the table. Cutting Kirk Cousins is not really an option. That's $45 million in dead money. You'd be better off playing him because he is, as we have talked about, an above average, even if not too far above average, quarterback by most metrics. So we got a question in the Access Vikings podcast that we didn't get to on Wednesday, asking, what do you think the percent chance is that Cousins is traded in the offseason? What do you think is the percent chance that he is extended? And I guess we'll also throw in the option that they ride it out on the $45 million deal. Here is my guess as to what happens with Kirk Cousins this offseason. I think the trade is the most likely scenario. I'm going to put that at 55%. A little bit more likely than not in terms of, just yes or no, up or down on that. I just feel like the time to do it is now. You can probably get some value in that case. There's teams that could use a quarterback. I've been through the list before, but Pittsburgh jumps out at me. Denver potentially jumps out at me. Cleveland jumps out at me. And there's probably a few more where you add a Kirk Cousins and he suddenly helps your roster. So I'm going to put the chances that he gets traded at about 55%. I'm going to say the odds of an extension probably around 35%. I could see a scenario where you get a coach, general manager tandem in here that says, you know what? Quarterback was not our problem. Quarterback was not the Vikings' problem. The problem is the rest of the roster. The problem was the approach. We're going to extend Kirk Cousins. We're going to make him our guy for the next 3 or 4 years. We're going to live with whatever cap number that is, with him taking up 15% of the cap again, because you would lower his number for 2022 certainly with any kind of extension. I could see that. The problem is you've seen what happens when you build a team around Kirk Cousins. You've had evidence in Washington. You have evidence in Minnesota. It's a 500 team. It really is. His record over his career is about 500. You'll be competitive, but you probably won't be great. And is that what a head coach coming in, a general manager coming in, wants to establish here? Maybe that creates a certain buffer, creates an opportunity to keep the job for a while, but it doesn't get you any closer to an ultimate objective of winning the Super Bowl. But I could see an opportunity where someone would come in and look at this and say, this guy gives us the best chance to win over the next 2 to 3, 3 to 4 years. Let's keep this train moving and try to build around him in a more meaningful way. I'd put the option of him playing it out at $45 million at about 10%. That just would wreck their cap in 2022. I think Ben Gessling talked on Access Vikings about how really that contract, that number was put out there as a trigger, that this was supposed to be the point where you either extend him or something else happens, that it was unlikely at any point that he was ever going to play out the 2022 season under that cap number. But let's say they explore the trade market and there's not a deal out there that they want to do. They're either having to take on too much money, they're not getting enough in return, they don't think it's fair value, but they also don't want to commit themselves long-term to Cousins. I suppose there is a way where you just play out the season. You probably have a credible year with Kirk Cousins. Maybe you draft your quarterback of the future either this year or next year and start planning for the future while still maintaining some semblance of competitiveness this year. I just don't think that's likely. It's hard, almost impossible to field a competitive team when he is a $45 million cap hit next season. He'd be taking up close to a quarter of your salary cap. You just can't really have that happening on your books. But we will see what they ultimately decide to do, what these new decision makers decide to do whenever they are in fact hired. For my money, I do see it being more likely that he gets traded than anything else. But again, I am not the one making that decision. I am merely the one who is talking about it, and talking about it perhaps nonstop for the next 2 months. That will do it for today. Mark Craig will be on Friday's show talking NFL playoffs, NFL picks for the weekend. Probably will pick his brain on some of this coaching search and GM search as well. So look forward to that. Thank you so much for joining me here today on Daily Delivery. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and we'll see you again on Friday.